They always said I was the strong one, the one who didn't need much help. That's how my parents explained giving all their love, time, and money to my cousin Ryan. Ryan wasn't even their son, he was my dad's sister's kid. After his parents died when we were young, my family treated him like royalty, and I became almost invisible. As we grew up, holidays were planned around Ryan. Whenever I did something great, they would smile politely, then quickly move on to celebrate something small Ryan had done. I graduated valedictorian and got a single dinner out at a chain restaurant. Ryan passed a single college course, and my parents hosted a garden party like he'd cured cancer. Still, I tried to believe in fairness, that deep down maybe they loved us both and just showed it differently, but that hope shattered the day I asked about the inheritance. It was after dinner, a rare quiet evening at my parents' house. I was visiting after getting my master's in finance and starting my own firm, something I'd built from the ground up, no help from them. As they sipped wine and Ryan lounged on the couch like a bored prince, I calmly brought it up. Have you two finalized anything with the estate? I just want to be sure there's a plan in place for when that time comes. I know how complicated things can get. They burst out laughing. I blinked. My mom literally laughed so hard she had to dab her eyes. My father shook his head, smirking. Oh, sweetheart, my mom said, her voice oozing condescension. That's cute, but Ryan's already been written into everything, you know, for stability. For stability? I echoed. Well, you're so smart and capable. You don't need a safety net like Ryan does, my father added, sipping his wine. You've always landed on your feet. They'd said that line 1,000 times, and every time it burned a little deeper. Ryan sat on the couch with that smug little smirk he always wore when he won by doing nothing. It's not personal, he said, they just know I'd probably ruin my life without some support. But hey, at least you don't have to worry about the pressure of responsibility. Pressure of responsibility? Was that what we were calling it now, giving him both their properties, their joint investments, and even my grandfather's estate in Vermont? I sat still, gripping the edge of my chair. They thought I'd get mad, they wanted me to explode, cry, beg, maybe even storm out like I'd done once before when I was younger. But I didn't, I simply smiled. Of course, I said calmly, you're right, I'm sure you made the best decision for the family. Inside, my stomach twisted with rage, but I knew better now. You don't react to betrayal with noise, you respond with strategy. And I had a plan, one they would never see coming, one they would never forget. My parents didn't just laugh when I asked about my inheritance, they dismissed me like a child asking for candy before dinner. Sweetheart, my mother had chuckled over her wine glass. You really think you earned something from this family? What have you ever done? My father just shook his head with that same smug indifference he always wore when I expressed anything that hinted at independence. The betrayal didn't end with laughter. A week later, I learned the full extent of their plan. The entire inheritance, our late grandfather's legacy, had been handed over to my cousin Brandon. Brandon the golden boy, Brandon, who had failed out of 2 colleges, crashed 3 cars, and once tried to invest in NFTs for dogs. That Brandon. When I asked why, my mother's response was even colder than before. Brandon is more like a son to us than you've ever been a daughter. He listens, he shows up, you write books no one reads. That broke something inside me. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I nodded quietly, and I began to plot. Brandon had inherited not just money, but control. He was given our grandfather's estate, both the land and the old family home, a house with historical significance, acres of land, and secrets. What they didn't realize was that before my grandfather passed, he had shared something with me, a story, a confession about a land grant hidden in old paperwork, a legal loophole that, if used correctly, could change ownership rights entirely. And I still had the deed. So, I called my lawyer, we reviewed the documents, my heart pounded as we confirmed it. I could reclaim the estate, quietly, legally, and permanently. While Brandon flaunted his new kingdom on Instagram with his trust fund girlfriend, I was quietly filing claims. While my parents planned a family barbecue to celebrate Brandon's inheritance, I was finalizing paperwork that would transfer the land back to its original heir, me. On the day of the barbecue, I arrived unannounced, not through the front door, but with a county officer and a property transfer notice. I didn't say a word at first, I let the silence build as the officer handed Brandon the papers. What the hell is this? Brandon laughed, still chewing his burger. My mother stepped forward, wine in hand. You're ruining a family moment again. That's when I spoke. This land, this house, this estate, it was never meant for you. Grandpa knew that, and he left the back door open for me to walk right in. You just never thought I'd be smart enough to find it. My father's face went pale. My mother's grip on her glass tightened. Brandon fumbled for his phone as if calling his followers would save him. But they already transferred everything, my dad sputtered. I smiled. Paper trails matter, legal history matters, and I learned how to follow both, when none of you believed in me. Brandon yelled. My parents begged. I turned and walked through the front door, my front door, and closed it behind me. That night, I didn't sleep in the guest room. I slept in the master suite, surrounded by walls that had once ignored me. Now, they stood with me. Because I wasn't the family burden anymore, I was the storm. The house was quiet the next morning. Sunlight poured through the antique windows and danced along the polished hardwood floors, warming the edges of the master bedroom where I now slept. Not as a guest, not as a daughter merely passing through, but as the rightful owner of a legacy I had to fight to reclaim. I made coffee in the same kitchen where I used to be scolded for asking too many questions. I stood in the backyard where I was once told to stay out of the way. But now, I was the only one who belonged here. My parents hadn't even tried to call since the confrontation. Brandon, too humiliated to face reality, went silent after storming off with his girlfriend in a rented sports car that still reeked of entitlement. But I didn't celebrate. The win felt powerful, yes, but also hollow in a way, because deep inside, I had always just wanted to be seen, valued, loved. And instead, I had to take back what was rightfully mine by becoming the person they were too blind to believe I could be. That afternoon, I found something tucked inside the old desk in the study, my grandfather's final handwritten letter, never mailed. It was addressed to me, in shaky ink. He wrote, "You were always the one who listened, who asked about history and heritage. I couldn't undo the favoritism around you, but I hope someday you'll reclaim what was always yours. I believe in your mind, and more than that, I believe in your heart. Don't become like them, win, but don't lose yourself doing it." I cried. The kind of cry that's not loud, not dramatic, just a slow unraveling of years of being underestimated, unloved, unwanted. And then I smiled, because I hadn't become like them, I hadn't destroyed them. I had simply taken my place. But fate wasn't finished. 2 months later, I got an invitation from the local university. They wanted me to speak on a panel about literature and legacy because my latest novel, one I had written secretly while working a dead-end job, had gone viral. It had been picked up for international publication, and the panel was being held in my hometown. My mother came, so did my father. They sat in the back, unsure whether to smile or stay invisible. They weren't used to being the ones on the outside looking in. But this time, the seats reserved in the front weren't for them. They had forgotten me when it mattered. Now the world remembered me in their absence. After the talk, a line formed. People wanted their books signed, their programs autographed, even a photo with the new voice of American fiction, as one critic had called me. And there, 2 people back in line, were my parents. I paused, the pen in my hand froze. My assistant leaned over and whispered, "Do you want me to ask them to leave?" But I shook my head. No, I would face them the way they never faced me, with dignity. When they reached my table, my mother's voice trembled. "We read your book." It was emotional. My father cleared his throat. "Your grandfather would have been proud." I looked at them both. These were the same people who gave my inheritance to a cousin who couldn't even keep a plant alive, who said I was the family burden, who turned my childhood into a graveyard of missed birthdays, stolen opportunities, and second-class love. And yet, in that moment, I didn't feel anger. I felt power. Not the kind that screams or lashes out, but the kind that says, "I made it without you." I picked up their copy of my book, signed the first page, and slid it back. "To the people who taught me everything I never want to be. Thank you." They walked away in silence. And I stood taller than I ever had before. Because sometimes poetic justice doesn't look like revenge. It looks like becoming everything they told you you'd never be, while they line up just to witness it.